I just want to do a quick video, right? This is a quick discussion video. I want to get your points of view on this, but this is something I've been thinking about more recently in general, and that's some of the old core box cards, right? And specifically, two cards in particular with Nick Fury and Avengers Mansion. Now, back in the day, these cards were used all the time. It was something everyone loved to put in. And now over time, the conversation has now kind of shifted to, is it still worthwhile? Does it still make sense to include these cards into your decks? And I just want to talk a little bit about it and just give some of my thoughts and feelings, but I really want to know what you think in the end, right? After you watch this video, put down in the comments. Let me know how you feel about these two cards, but let's go check them out first before we go too much in depth with this. All right, so the first one to bring up is Nick Fury. He is a core box card, 4 cost, 2/2/3 stat line. After Nick Fury enters play, choose one, remove 2 threat from a scheme, which I don't know if I've ever done that. Like, that has never been a decent trade-off in my opinion. Maybe I should look at it, but I really rarely do that. Draw 3 cards, which is the big one I think most people use them for. And then the other option to deal 4 damage to enemy. When I'm making a final push, this isn't a bad option to have. I've done this a couple times, so it can be worthwhile. But the draw 3 card seems huge, right? Because, and then the last thing before I forget, at the end of the round, if Nick Fury is still in play, discard him. So basically using him as a chump blocker, right? So you're paying 4 to draw 3 cards. That's not that bad, right? Most people line this up with having the doubles, right? Genius, strength, all of those that we've come to know and love over the years. A lot of people say, like, all right, if you get one of those and pay for Nick Fury, it makes it much easier, and then you have more cards to work with and right things to move around with. I will also say that Power of All of Us kind of like helped Nick Fury, and also Avengers Mansion, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But it's kind of interesting because Shield, they've done some stuff with Shield now, so that makes a little more sense. They haven't done much with Spy yet. Hopefully, they do stuff with the Spy keyword, but they haven't yet. But maybe they will one day. I will say that this is a card that I got away from for a little while, and I've slowly been bringing back out. And really, it's because I am running my doubles. It's because I am kind of using the Power of All of Us a lot recently. Not on purpose or anything, but just I'm messing around with the gray cards more, the basic cards, just to kind of see how I can get them to work, different ways to get them work. You know what I mean? Like just messing around with it. So as of right now, for me personally, I still use Nick Fury a lot. And I think he's inspired cards like Moon Girl, which I think is a really cool card. It's a 3/2/2/3 stat line. Go and play for Champion Genius. But after you play Moon Girl from your hand, draw 1 for each mental resource you use to pay for her. I see this being like the evolution of Nick Fury, right? It's a little bit cheaper. And you can basically draw all the way back up to what you paid from. But you have to use a certain resource, right? Like I really like this concept of this card. I don't like the Champion Genius restriction to it, but maybe if they come out with more cards that are like X-Men related or Spider-Man related or whatever that do things like this, I think that can be pretty cool. Because again, Nick Fury with the 4, I mean, 4 is still just like, if you have a 6 hand size, right? Like you have 1 card left, right? If you have a double that you can use in there, okay, you have 2 cards left, and if one's a 1 cost card, you can use, right? If I'm doing that math right, hopefully I am. And that's just really expensive. Now, again, I know you draw the 3 cards, so instead of ending up with 1 card left, you really have 4 cards left. And if there's 2 cheap cards or, a 3 cost card in there, then it works out all right. But it can get a little weird at times. And that's not to say that Moon Girl is like that much more efficient, but like it's a little bit better, right? Just like a little bit better. So anyway, I hope they kind of do more variations of this card. I do like the idea of Nick Fury. He still gets added in a lot. I mean, card draw is kind of king in the game still, and I think Nick Fury kind of really helps that out a good amount. So I think for me personally, nowadays, I still play Nick Fury almost half the time, I want to say. Back in the day, it was almost all the time. It's definitely not all the time, but it's a lot of the time. And I definitely have a place for him in my deck, it seems like pretty much all the time. So kind of going with that is a card that I used to use all the time, backed way off. Power and All of Us came back out, right? Or came out with Wasp, right? Yeah, came out with Wasp. Started using it a ton and then backed off again. And then now it's kind of like finding its place now and again. The thing with Avengers Mansion is that I think it's an incredibly good card if you have a double in your hand and if you draw it early and if you don't get caught off guard. And that sounds like a lot of ifs, but it's not a ton, right? I mean, getting this card early shouldn't be too hard, right? Especially if you mulligan hard for it. You could see, roughly 10 to 15% of your deck, right? If you're a 40 card deck and you start with 6 cards and you can mulligan all the way through 12 cards, I can do math because 10% would be 4 cards, 20% would be 8 cards. I mean, like that's a lot of cards, right? In general. So you can, if you really want to go for it, get this card pretty early on. The biggest thing obviously is getting the getting caught off guard, which is a bad card that makes you get rid of a support upgrade you control. So obviously if you get this out, you want to get a card that's also really cheap just to like kind of protect this card. But it's a card that, like I said, it's kind of gone in and out, and I don't know where I really land on it anymore. I think I still like it. I think I still want to use it, and I throw it in some decks, but I never think to mulligan hard for this card because there's so many other specific cards I'd rather have, right? Like one extra card is not that great. One extra card, 6 rounds in a row, that's pretty good, right? That can lead to really good things. So it's this weird trade-off for me. It feels like this is one of those cards I end up putting in where if it works out, it works out, but if it doesn't, it doesn't, right? And I don't know if that's a good or bad strategy to have. My gut says it's not a great strategy to have. Like I should actively kind of go for this card, especially in the beginning. And if you don't get it, then you move aside. But like I said, with a lot of heroes nowadays, they have so many good cards that I almost rather play one of those cards, right? Or start working the hero identity specific upgrades and supports usually have so much going on and interact with the hero in so many interesting ways. I don't know. I just feel like it's one of those things where I want to use it more. I want to mess around with it more. I just don't, unfortunately. So again, maybe I'll start using some more, but I'm not 100% sure. This is a super short, quick video, as I mentioned in the beginning. And the reason being is because it's just some rough thoughts. I want to kind of do this with some cards that I've been thinking about recently and just talking a bit about the cards and more importantly, getting your opinions on the cards, right? Like I said, let me know down below. What do you think of these cards? What are cards that you've forgotten about that you still mess around with, whatever else? Because I think it's worth looking into. And I don't want to go like super in depth with any of this stuff. More of this is just kind of a conversation starter. I think it's fun stuff to talk about. Again, what do I use versus what do you use versus what does the next person use? So, yeah, we'll see. We'll see. I think for after this video, you may see some more use of Avengers Mansion and Nick Fury and just test it out. I think that's what I'm going to do is just test it out and see how I still feel about it. Because I think it's good to go back to older cards and kind of reevaluate how you're feeling about them. So anyway, I plan to do a couple more videos kind of the same vein as this, just talking a bit about the cards. Do me a huge favor. If you enjoy this video, make sure to hit the like button, hit subscribe, all that fun stuff. It really helps out the channel. And if you want to come watch the live streams, come over to twitch.tv/D20 woodworking. Come hang out with us and talk about different cards that you like or don't like or whatever else. And hopefully you don't mind this type of video, just more of me rambling about stuff, but I think it's interesting to talk about.